Here's an interesting question from. What is this? NPA Ragio Music, I'm calling it. How did you get sponsored? Alright. Tale of how I got sponsored back in the day. The day being not even a year ago. So, I'll tell you the tale. Let me find another album to... There we go. Astor Piazzolla. This is by Consumer artist Achilles Leomarkopoulos. Yeah, I said that right. He's the trombonist in Canadian Brass, good friend, amazing guy, amazing player. Not a Kickstarter album. Anyway. How did I get sponsored? I got a phone call from a man named Frank when I was in Washington, D.C. for the Eastern Trombone Workshop. I will be there again this year, by the way. Again, not playing, haven't been asked, but it is now called the American Trombone Workshop. So I was there last year at the final Eastern Trombone Workshop, I guess, and I got the phone call from Frank down in Texas, and he said, "Hey, saw your video of Happy," and he said, "I'm not officially working for Consumer, but I do work with them quite a bit, and it'd be cool to get you kind of on board with something that they're doing." And I said, "Sure. I do that kind of thing all the time." Even though this was like the first time I ever even gotten a call from somebody like this. And then next thing I know, I was on a conference call with a guy named Mike, who was the head of the educational division of Consumer, and Frank, who was the guy who called me at the beginning. And he was basically like, let's make this all happen. And they invited me out to Indiana for the Consumer Institute, which is just kind of a thing that happens for music educators. So music teachers all over the place can come there and kind of do workshops and learn about how teaching kids is the most important thing, and we love them. So anyway, I was just going to go and play a little bit, and then they also wanted me to do the Texas Bandmasters Association festival, which I did, of course, this past summer, but that was all just the beginning, and I thought they were just kind of hiring me to do that. They put me on this kind of like educational roster, but there's a lot of people on that. And so I wasn't sponsored by any means, but there was talks of it. It was kind of like not in the backs of anybody's mind. It was like, this is definitely maybe going to happen. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it was probably a good thing. So anyway, we had like phone meetings scheduled and all this stuff, but it didn't end up happening until I was in San Antonio for the Texas Bandmasters Association, I believe, is when it actually finally happened. And that's when the contracts finally got rolled out, and basically they said they were going to help me out by sponsoring the videos every week, and all I would have to do is put an ad at the end, and they were like, "You already play our instruments, so you don't have to change a thing. All you have to do is put an ad at the end, and we'll give you a couple bucks." And then they would also fly me all over the place and get me out performing, because it's best for me to be performing for them to show off what these instruments can do and try to get kids inspired to play music. The thing is, I'm not just a Consumer artist. There are some of those, and I don't know them. But I'm an educational artist. And so they're getting me to schools and places that can't really afford this kind of thing, can't afford to like fly me across the world to play, but man, would it be great if I could. And so Conn pays for this stuff, and it really is just good for schools and good for music programs, and I really like it. It's not your everyday sponsorship. But how did it come about? It was just kind of this natural thing where Frank called me and then Mike called me and all this stuff, and they're like, "What instruments do you play?" And I'm like, "Bach, King, and Conn." And they're like, "Great." And then it just kind of fell into place after the summer. I've only been on contract with them for a few months now. But yeah, and the other thing about this is there are plenty of trombonists who are better than me by far. I mean, in New York alone. But I have this marketability, and I have this following, and I have all this extra stuff that is more what they're looking for in a sponsorship. And so there are people in my eyes who are far more deserving of this kind of thing and this kind of treatment, but it's about more than that. And so it feels kind of bad for me to just like be a year out of college and have all of this stuff, but it's about getting the music to the kids and all this stuff, and it's like I'm the person who can do that best at this point in the trombone world. I'm the person who is reaching these kids in the first place, and so it just makes sense for them to be sponsoring me to do it more effectively. And I hope it keeps going and grows and is something amazing, but until then, you should buy this Tango Destino by Achilles Leopoldopoulos.